Howdy, howdy do, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 243.
Oh, yeah.
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting thing. Nobody in the universe can do what we're doing.
I've reversed the polarity of the neutron flow, so the TARDIS should be free of the force field now.
You may be a doctor, but I'm the doctor. The definite article, you might say.
The trouble with time travel is, one never seems to find the time.
Change, my dear, and it seems on a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc.
I am the Doctor!
For now, for this moment, I am the Doctor again.
The ground beneath our feet is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. And the entire planet is hurtling around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour, and I can feel it. We're falling through space, you and me.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
I could be a curator. I'd be great at curating. I'd be the great curator. I could retire and do that.
I'm the Doctor. I've lived for over 2,000 years, and not all of them were good. I've made many mistakes, and it's about time that I did something about that.
Bit of adrenaline, dash of outrage, and a hint of panic knitted my brain back together. I know exactly who I am. I'm the Doctor. Sorting out fair play throughout the universe.
Hey Who fans, welcome aboard. Hope you've all had a cracking week and that you've all managed to do something Doctor Who related. Indeedy weedy. See old Jodie Whittaker's got the old singing voice out.
Look at the stars.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, that was me, by the way, not Jodie. Yes, I see that, yeah. For children in need, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, very good cause, children in need.
Yeah. Apparently, David Tennant's done a track on there as well. I haven't heard it yet, but...
He's done a Proclaimers track, hasn't he?
Surprise, surprise. David Tennant sings a Proclaimers song.
He loves the Proclaimers, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I don't mean to sound cruel, but I only know one of their songs. I didn't realise they'd done another one. Have they done loads?
Oh, Adam.
But their only hit is 5 billion miles, whatever it's called.
It's not their only
and
hit.
I would walk.
But
yeah.
There was a really cool... I've forgotten what series it was. It might have been David Tennant's last one. The specials.
Yes.
Did you see that? They did this clip, didn't they?
They all did it, didn't they?
They all did the 500 miles singing and dancing at the end, which was really cool. And it's a really funny bit where one of the actors dressed up in the Ood costume is proper funking out.
Yeah, I do remember that. It was brilliant. It must have been because John Sim's in it, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Isn't it David, John Sim, and they're all sort of dancing down the corridor to 500 miles? Or what is it called?
Yes, 500 miles, yeah.
Yeah, 5 billion would be quite a long walk, wouldn't it? Yeah.
That would be. Yeah.
That was a brilliant clip. Oh, that was great. That makes you think of Confidential for some reason. Doctor Who Confidential.
We can't say it. We can't come across as, you know, a lot of people sort of roll their eyes and the good old days of Doctor Who.
They were good days though.
They were cracking times. Yeah, I remember those
days.
I remember picking up those as I binge watched all of those box sets for the first time. Watching all of those Confidential stories. They were episodes. They were really good. Really good. It was almost like its own show, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a great little sort of mini making of, I guess, I suppose. Mini behind the scenes, more like, actually, yeah.
Yes. Well, I guess it was its own show, to be fair. It had its own title and everything. It just seemed more like it was more purposefully done. Had a bit of production about it, but yeah. So it was cool to hear Jodie Whittaker's name. Even though it wasn't directly linked to Doctor Who, it was still good to hear our leading person out there at the minute.
I think her and David were because they recorded at Abbey Road Studios. I saw some pictures of them together at the studio. So it's nice to think of, the two doctors in there doing that at the same time. Yeah.
David rubbing the figures in a little bit of salt in the wounds. He's like, so what are your figures like at the minute? She's like, a few mil. He's like, oh, is that all?
He wouldn't. He's
you got a bit of catching up to do, then, didn't you, love? Hey?
He's
too
do
nice.
that.
No.
He's a nice man, so I hear.
I jest. Yeah, he's apparently.
Well, you've met him, of course.
Of course, yeah. I had a good old chat with him.
I say through gritted teeth.
Yeah, I had a good old, proper in-depth chat with him. It was the handshake, smile, and bugger off. Yep.
Yeah.
But he did seem very nice, though.
He does come across as a nice guy, yeah.
Talking of handshakes and buggering off, I saw this YouTube clip the other day, which really annoyed me.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a thing, there's a movement at the minute within Star Wars fandom. And seems to be a very big backlash towards Disney and Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy. And there's a growing fan pool of people that are just destroying everything that they're saying about Star Wars because they hated The Last Jedi and all that.
Oh, right.
And all that. And there was a guy, and there's a very popular YouTube channel called Geeks and Gamers. And essentially it's just one or two guys on there that just destroy everything to do with official Star Wars stuff. Anyway, they were at this convention. I think it was New York Comic Con a week or so ago. And there was one guy who was with him, and he runs his own YouTube channel. I can't remember the name of it. And they had come out of the Chris Eccleston panel that he did there.
Yeah.
And they were laying into him very heavily.
What, Chris?
Yeah. The crux of their message was, if you see Chris Eccleston at a convention, just ignore him. Don't pay him any money for autographs or pictures. Don't go and see his panel, because they think, anyway, that he's ignored fandom for many, many years. And now that he's feeling a bit lonely and needs the money, all of a sudden he's on the convention circuit and, he's scamming fans out of things. They were like, where were you 10 years ago when everybody was asking for Chris Eccleston to turn up at conventions, and now you need the money, you come crawling back. And I was thinking, come on, where are you guys getting this from?
Well, if they'd been to his panel, they might know the reasons why he's been so distant from Doctor Who. Because I think, if you sort of think about it on sort of face value, going back in time before, we know the facts behind things, you might think it did appear like he just didn't want to know Doctor Who. But then he's been very honest and frank recently about why he left and why he's had to have a massive break from it and his bad feelings toward the BBC. And there was a lot of stuff went down behind the scenes that's only really recently come to light. He was going through some really bad health problems, mentally and physically. So maybe they should go to his talk before they say these things, and they might appreciate more why he's suddenly come back. And he's, the talk I saw him do was brilliant. He was so honest and frank, and he said how proud he was of his time on Doctor Who. But he's also very honest. I mean, he was also asked, I don't know if it's the same convention, but he was asked yesterday or at the weekend, one of his talks, if he'd ever considered doing Big Finish. And straight away he went, no, I wouldn't. I'm sorry. I know that's not the answer you want to hear, but no, I'm very proud of my 13 episodes, but that's it. I've walked away from Doctor Who. I won't be doing Big Finish. And I thought, okay, he could have lied and said, well, we'll see. Who knows what the future holds? And no, he says it as he sees it. I take that kind of a pinch of salt anyway, because he said about 2 years ago he'd never do conventions. So
exactly,
we all change our mind on things, and I certainly don't think he's back just for the money. He seems like quite a on the level guy to me. From the talk I saw him do and having met him and stuff, and he's going through a lot of stuff back then. So.
I don't think it's a money thing, because he's always been in regular work since Doctor Who. He's never once been a recluse, and all of a sudden he's made a comeback. He's always been in things. He's always worked. So I don't think it's a money thing. But even if that's the case, that's down to Chris Eccleston to do. Even if he did suddenly decide, I want to come back and do some conventions, then what the beep does that matter? You know, if the guy's changed his mind and wants to come back and do conventions, then great. Who is anyone to question him on that? Even if he said years ago, I'm not going to do conventions, and then now he's doing them. So what? Who cares? If he wants to do them, then crack on, mate. Go and do them. I'd be the same if I said something on this podcast like, I hate a particular Doctor, and then like 2 or 3 years later, I'm like, oh, I'm watching this Doctor now, I really like it. That's fine. Even though I said that, years ago, my opinions change, my mind's changed. So that's completely fine.
Exactly. I was going to say opinions do change.
Exactly.
That's part of life. I mean, not trivializing it, but I'm thinking back to the episode Midnight, the Tennant episode. I remember I hated that on the first watch. And if you were to ask me then, I'd be like, God, it was like an awful episode of EastEnders in space. Everyone's shouting at each other. Oh, it was terrible. When we rewatched it for the podcast, I was sat there thinking, this is really good. I can't believe how much I'm enjoying this. Sometimes, things are just different when you reflect on them and stuff. So, people are allowed to change their opinion.
Yes. As the 11th Doctor said in his Regeneration, change is good. You've got to keep moving.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I had that with McCoy. Couldn't stand McCoy.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Look at that. I mean, God, love McCoy now.
When I first started watching McCoy, I was like, what the frick is this? What is going? Why did they? I can see why. I had my my grumpy old man hat on. I was like, well, I can see why they axed it if it was like this. But then the more I watched it, my opinion changed, and now it's a complete 180 on that. So, Chris, I know you listen. Just ignore all of that stuff, mate. Just if you want to do conventions, even though you said you didn't want to, then sod everyone else. You crack on, mate.
I was going to say, one thing I've noticed about Chris in the few times I've seen him is he seems to be able to stand up for himself. Like a woman in the audience, literally as they were trying to wrap up when I saw his talk, started going off on one. And no one could quite work out what she was getting at, but she sounded angry. And Chris just said to her, like, sorry, have I done something to offend you? Like, what is it? Like, he would just, he's straight in there. Do you know what I mean? There's none of this sort of, oh, sorry, what's the problem? He's like, what have I done to offend you? He's like straight in there. Yeah, same with that autograph dealer that was chasing him down the road 3 or 4 times until Chris was like, do you want to fight, mate? And he actually said that. He goes, do you want to fight? Because you're going to get one if you keep hassling me. I've already signed for you. You're not getting any more. And I was like, yeah, you tell him, Chris. No, he can stand up for himself. Yeah, he can look after himself. Don't worry about it.
He can dish.
But also, that makes him sound like he's a really nasty. He's not. He comes across as a very nice guy, but he's just got that sort of northern, no nonsense, says it how it is kind of way, and I like that. You know where you stand with him.
Indeedy. Yes.
Yeah. I've still not got around to reading much of his book. I've just had no time lately, and I'm massively looking forward to getting stuck into that actually. But I haven't had much time. It's sort of sat there waiting to be, on that pile of all the other books that I've got.
Of course, yeah.
But that's on the top actually. That is one I'm really looking forward to reading. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yes. Since last week, the only thing I've done is after I watched Hungry Earth and Cold Blood for our review. This always gets me, and I've caved in this week. When I watch the Next Time trailer. Once we finish watching a review, sometimes the next time trailer sort of pulls me in, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this one's good. And it's Vincent and the Doctor after Cold Blood, and it's cool because we reviewed it. So I thought, actually, I haven't seen this one in a while, so I just left the disc in and just watched Vincent and the Doctor. I tell you what, mate, even now, just end up blubbering like a bloody baby towards the end of that. It's a
very good episode, that. I mean, it's so beautifully shot as well. It's funny you say that because I let the disc... I didn't watch the whole episode, actually, because I had stuff to do, but I kind of let it drift on to the next one, and that opening shot of just the wheat blowing in the wind in the field, and I was like, it's everything about it, and the colours in that episode, it is such a good story, that one. I like it a lot. I'm going to come to this in review actually. I can't remember what happens to Rory. I'm like, how does he come back?
Oh yeah,
I really can't remember, but I'll come to that in the review. We'll talk about it more when we get to it. I don't want to jump ahead. Have you been watching much of your season 23 yet?
No, mate. No, I've not. I've not picked it up at all.
Oh right,
no, it's been sat on the shelf. Yeah.
I've been working through that. It's great, actually. I've still got... This is what I love about those sets. They are just rammed to the rafters with so many extras. I love them. And I've been watching the Behind the Sofas, which I've been really enjoying. I watched a couple of the extra features, which I talked about on last week's podcast, which I really enjoyed. So I've still got loads to watch. There's an interview with Bonnie Langford and Matthew Sweet, which apparently is awesome. I really like him as an interviewer anyway. And Bonnie, despite what people might think about the character of Mel and stuff, she's great on Big Finish. She really, as usual, they really fleshed out Mel's character. But Bonnie Langford is seriously one of the nicest people you could meet. She's so genuinely lovely. So I'm really looking forward to watching that interview of her. So I've got loads to watch. I've got that. I've got the Doctor Who cookbook thing that they do on there. Where they get all the actors to cook the recipes that they made back in the 80s when that book was released. And yeah, I've got loads still to watch, but I'm loving it. That set is just, I'm not the biggest fan of that particular Trial of a Time Lord series. I like it, but I don't love it. It's not like the McCoy set that's coming out hopefully before Christmas. That I will just devour because I love McCoy. But the extras on this set are brilliant. I haven't really done much else. So I did have a nice delivery of my Robert Harrop Cyberman. I don't know if you saw my pictures.
I did. Very nice. Yeah.
So I love those figurines, as regular listeners will know. And they're doing this series of 4 figurines from Tomb of the Cybermen. So they did this might sound odd, but they did the Cyber Controller's door. And I was thinking, what? But what it is it's basically the famous emblem of the sort of cyber head symbol that's on his door that he comes out of. It's that, and it's hard for me to describe it. It's such a lovely
I've seen it, yeah.
piece.
It looks good.
And then this one that's just arrived is one of the Cybermen from that, and he looks fantastic in hand, absolutely beautiful. And then they're doing the Cyber Controller with his big old dome head. He's coming out next. And then the final piece in this little sort of mini run that they're doing is like a sort of, what would you call it? Well, it's cyber mats, but they're sort of coming down a little chute.
Oh, yeah.
So they've built the chute and they're going to put some cyber mats. I just loving it, mate. That's it. So that dropped through the door earlier. Absolutely fantastic. And the only other thing I've done really, and it's sort of tenuously linked to Doctor Who because Joe Lister's involved in it, is I watched the first episode of the remake of The Demon Headmaster last night. Now, did you remember watching this back in the day?
I loved this back in the day.
I thought you might. That's why I thought I'd mention it. So have you watched this new one? Because it's only just come out.
No, I didn't know it was coming back, mate.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly what Joe Lister's involvement is. I mean, obviously he's a writer, so he's in there somewhere. And there's another lady whose name escapes me. She's sort of been the main one to sort of rewrite bits and stuff. But so episode 1's on the iPlayer now. If you liked the original series like I did, and it sounds like you did, it was really good. They just somehow have managed to capture that feel of what TV was like when I was a kid. I can't really explain it, but I know you'll know what I mean when you watch it. It's just the music and the way it's filmed, and it was just like, because when I was a kid growing up, to be fair, we had some amazing TV. I mean, our kids' programs back in the day were just brilliant. The good old days again. But they were so, I don't know, they just had a quality about them that was amazing. And this, I don't know, they seem to have just captured a bit of that. It's good. It's well worth watching. It kind of has a bit of a Sarah Jane vibe to it in that it's sort of a kids program, but I didn't feel like it was childish.
Right.
It felt like I was quite sort of content watching it as an adult. So yeah, give it a watch, mate. Good casting as the new headmaster. I forget the guy's name, but yeah, he's good. But the original series was creepy as anything, wasn't it? For a kids show.
I was going to say, it
was creepy.
Yeah, for a kids show, it was really creepy.
Yeah, especially the headmaster guy. But yeah, so give that a watch, mate. I think you'll like it.
Next year is going to be a big one to judge if a reboot has worked in terms of children's shows, which is the Wurzel Gummidge reboot.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it, and I'm also very scared because we love it so much.
Yeah, I can imagine Pertwee's looking down, thinking, "Do not screw this up."
No,
Mackenzie, if you screw this up, there's going to be trouble.
I know. I am very excited for that, I must admit. Because if you want to see creepy, brilliant children's television, go and watch the original series of Gummidge. I mean, it's fantastic, isn't it? We both love it.
It's amazing.
But there is some scenes in that I'm like, God, this is harsh. Like, there's a bit where a scarecrow is getting ripped to shreds and arms and limbs are flying everywhere, and It's brilliant though. I'm making it sound like it's horrific. It's brilliant series, the original Worlds of Gummidge.
Yes, and they did I don't mean to bang on because it's not a Gummidge podcast, but
no, we will do one day.
One day. On their Facebook page, I saw a link to a YouTube video that they filmed an anniversary video, and it had the original cast back. It's so lovely.
It is actually, yeah. I saw that as well. I watched it a couple of times, like straight off the bat. I watched it and then I watched it again and again. You can the amount of love that's gone into that. Because the music, apparently, I assumed they'd just used the stock music from the original, all re-recorded, but it sounds just like it did back in the day. Oh, it's amazing.
The way it's shot as well, it just looks like an episode from back in the day, doesn't it? And
the bit that got me, and I bet it's the same for you, is when she finally goes up to Gummidge. He's got his back to her in the field, and you're like, how are they going to do this then? Because obviously it would have been John Pertwee back in the day. And he turns around and you just, I'm not going to say anymore, but it's like, what are they going to do? It was brilliant.
It's lovely. Yeah.
It's, really, really nice.
The good old days, eh?
Still we all sounded old.
Right, that's enough waffle.
Yeah.
Shall we land the TARDIS and crack on with some news?
Yeah.
Doctor Who magazine celebrates a birthday this week.
The big one.
The big 40 years.
40 years.
Doctor Who magazine has been on the shelves, and it's still on the shelves today. Yes, I saw it in W.H. Smith's day before yesterday, actually, the Tom Baker cover. It looks really good, and it began life as... I'm not going to go into too much detail because probably a raft of our listeners already know this stuff, but back in 1979 on the 11th of October, the very first Doctor Who magazine, known as Doctor Who Weekly back then, was published for the first time, and like the current one, it had Tom Baker on the front with a Dalek. Looks very good. And it would have cost you back in the day the very outrageous sum of 12p.
12p.
12p a week for and bear in mind that was the officially approved BBC Doctor Who magazine, so it was legit and still is. So and then I think when was it turned monthly in the 80s, so issue 45 it changed from weekly to monthly, and that's the format that it's been ever since. And now we're on what's coming up, 4544 is the next one.
Is it? Yes, I think so. Yeah,
something like that. And then it was taken over by Panini Comics in the 90s. And I think there's a special anniversary edition. That's the next one, isn't it? The anniversary one.
Yeah, it's coming out. Well, actually, will have come out on the Thursday before this podcast goes out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've said before, I don't actually subscribe to the magazine anymore. I did a few years ago, but I stopped my subscription. But I know that you, my good man, you have got tons of these. You still subscribe, don't you?
I still subscribe. Yeah, I was just thinking how amazing. I mean, to do that as a weekly when it first came out. How the hell did they find enough? Well, I suppose I don't know. I'm just thinking the content they must have had to have put together to get that out every week. I'm not surprised they went monthly because I'm thinking of like us with the podcast as well. When we're trying to find news to do it every week, it must have been quite a mission. But I still subscribe to this, and I still love it in a way. I mean, I think, I don't read it from page to page like I used to. But I still always look forward to it arriving, although I often moan about the condition it arrives in, and people who follow my Twitter are probably thinking, oh, but you're always moaning about it. Yeah, because it often arrives all battered and damaged, but that's nothing to do with the actual content of the magazine. I still love getting Doctor Who monthly, and the subscribers get a subscription textless free cover, which is why I've continued to get it rather than buy it in the shop. But if I wasn't a subscriber, I would still buy it every month. I don't know, there's something about having one out every month. I just always look forward to seeing what it's going to have. The anniversary issue looks really good. I think it's coming with a free Doctor Who DVD, but they're not saying what's on it, so we don't know. But that should be quite cool, and it's going to have lots of other little goodies in it as well. So, but yeah, it's quite amazing actually. I think magazines now, to have a physical magazine on the shelf, like anything in a physical format, doesn't sell anywhere near as much as they used to. And they do it as a digital format for those who prefer digital. I'm old school, so I like to have the real thing. But it is amazing that 40 years later they're still going. It really is. We shouldn't underestimate that, because magazines just don't sell like they used to. So to be still going fairly strong 40 years later is a good achievement, a really good achievement. And I'm glad they still are. I really am. Yeah, sounds like I'm welling up. I'm not. I've just got a really croaky throat.
That's what he says.
Yeah, I've got dust in my eye. But no, it's really, really cool that they're still getting a magazine on the shelf every month. Yeah,
it's very cool. Yeah, happy birthday. Yes,
happy birthday. You cherry pick it, don't you? Buy the odd one here and there.
Yeah, I pick them out. Yeah, I'll get the anniversary one. That looks good.
Yeah, I'll definitely get that one. Yeah. What do you reckon the free DVD will be? They haven't told us.
It might.
What could it be? Could it be the new Mission to the Unknown? Do you think
it could be? Actually, yeah. It could have that on there.
I forgot to ask you if you'd watched that yet.
I have. Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
They've done a cracking job with that.
It could be. Well, I mean, I haven't seen the original, but it's done just like the episodes were done back then. I'm amazed how well they've put that together.
Yep, the camera movements and even subtle little things like the way the opening bit where the camera moves away like through the leaves and stuff, and then just those subtle little things that you had back in the day where you've got the camera focused on your actors, but then it kind of moves a little bit into frame and then comes out a bit, and there's a slight little blurriness every now and then. They've nailed all those little details from early BBC black and white stuff. It's really well done. Yeah,
really quite incredible. Yeah, I was going to say, actually, while we're talking about that, I'll ask the listeners, because if I had one little nitpick, because I thought it was amazing, by the way, the music they would have used in the original, is that the music that was in the original episode? Because it was a bit dun dun dun. I was like, oh, is that?
I don't know.
I'm just curious if that was the original music. Yeah, but a fantastic production, and absolutely kudos to the guys and people that put it together. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Right, moving on to some sad news, I'm afraid, and this is bizarre, really, because this ties into the story we're reviewing today. So, sadly, Stephen Moore, the actor, has died at the age of 81. Stephen was actually in the episode we're going to be reviewing today. He starred as Silurian Eldane in the two-parter we're reviewing. Not that you'd really know because of all the mask and prosthetics he had to wear, but when you see him, this is one of those actors. I don't know about you, mate, but when I saw the name Stephen Moore, I was like, no, it doesn't ring a bell. And then I see his face, and I'm like, oh, him. Mm-hmm. He's pops up in lots of things over the years. He's one of those faces you would recognise. He was also the voice of Marvin the Paranoid Android in the Douglas Adams Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy TV series and the radio series. He was also in The Queen's Nose. Do you remember that?
I do. Yep.
I used to love that. Awesome. That's going back in the good old days. He played George Mole in the TV series of Secret Diary of Adrian Mole. I remember watching that as well. So he's done lots of things, loads of theatre as well. And sadly, as I said, has passed away at the age of 81.
Yeah, sad news. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't have any more news. That's it for news. But we do have a couple of cool bits of merch stuff to talk through. So let's have a look.
Merch corner. Merch corner. Merch corner.
It's a bit rubbish, but it's pretty. It's very pretty.
Well, there you are, young man. What do you think of that now, eh? A Viking helmet.
I know, it's on the telly. It's everywhere.
I don't know whether to be impressed or disgusted.
I work in a shop now, here to help.
I hope we do get a Viking helmet one week to review.
That'd be amazing.
There you are, boy. What do you think of that?
The unofficial Doctor Who annual, the 1987 edition, is on the way. You might remember many moons, well, a few months earlier on in the year, I think, we spoke about this company. I can't remember exact episode, but the distributors, I think I fudged this last time as well, Terraquous distributors. Essentially the guys that redid for us the previous Doctor Who annual. It was the 1972, I think.
I think so, yeah. So it's ones that basically were not released at the time, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So they've put this together for us. And then the next one is the 1987 release, which is going to be... It's not out yet, but I think it's out a little bit later in the year. But essentially, this is just a fan-made project, non-profit. So this is not for sale. And... but you can download, I think last time I downloaded it through their actual website, you can download it as a PDF, I believe. And just to give you some blurb on this, so the last one, when they did the 1972 version, apparently that proved really popular, much more than they anticipated. And everyone said to them, so what one are you going to do next? And they said, well, we love the Sixth Doctor, so the decision to do another classic-style annual was very easy. This time, continuing from where world distributors finish their run of Doctor Who annuals. Oh, okay. So this is when that particular company who used to do those annual stops, they've obviously picked up there. And they say, as children growing up in the 80s collecting these wonderful books, a lot of fans were disappointed when after 21 years the annual stopped. Those original 28 books, including 2 omnibus 4 Dalek annuals and a K9 annual, hold such fond memories that we felt the need to celebrate. So like our previous release, we have been blessed by the kindness of such well-known names from the worlds of Doctor Who, such as Fraser Hines, Alistair Pearson and David Howe. And they've all contributed to this publication, joining a large number of Doctor Who fan writers and artists. And we are so grateful to everyone who has supported the project. So if you're into your classic Doctor Who annuals from back in the day, and some of them were amazing, let's be honest.
I love the artwork on some of them, yeah.
Annuals... Not just Doctor Who, but annuals can be a little bit hit and miss, I find. Some of them can be really good, and they're packed full of really cool stuff. Other ones can be a little bit, oh, that doesn't look great, and you can tell that it's a bit of a rush job, and the content in there is not too great. I think the last annual for Doctor Who wasn't amazing, if I'm honest. I think just from
have you seen the new one? It looks about 10 pages. It's so thin.
It's not great, is it? And I think the current annual as it stands now, it looked like, some kind of...
You're on about that green one?
Yeah, like an intern who's only just installed Photoshop. They were given the task of coming up with the annual. It didn't look good at all. However, I'm a big fan of a lot of these old ones. And some of them are just so cool. So
the Pertwee ones are lovely.
Yes, they are. The artwork on some of those early ones is great as well, because it's not a photograph on some of them. It's a proper piece of artwork. They look amazing.
It's weird how forgiving we are as well, because I think people are so quick to pick up on mistakes in terms of like artwork now. It's like, oh, the windows are all wrong and that's wrong. And yet it's weird because a lot of that's things we love about the old annuals. We're like, oh, look at the TARDIS on that one. It's got like 17 windows, but it looks great. It's like, so it's weird, isn't it, how forgiving we are about, because it has that sort of charm of, oh, back in the day they didn't get stuff right, but because it's all hand drawn and stuff, we love it. And it, as I said, some of the Pertwee ones are great. There's a couple that I haven't got, and they go for really, well, I wouldn't say silly money because they're beautiful, but they go for a lot on eBay. But I'd love to get hold of some of the ones I'm missing. Yeah. You can get I know they are going to do like what do they call it, print on demand for this one, which I think they did do for the last one as well. So if you want your physical version of it, like I would, then you can get it. But yeah, it's nice. It's just nice that they're filling in gaps, Yeah,
it looks
so
good.
Put it with your others,
Yeah, so you do have to pay for that, obviously, if you want the print.
Yeah.
If you want that one, then, which is completely fair enough. It's all good. Yeah, I got the last one. It was very, very cool. Not as a print, but yeah, it was really good. So we'll stick a link in the show notes to they don't have an official site, but they do have a Facebook page. So we'll stick a link to that and you can check it out. It's it looks very good.
It does. Right, moving on. So this is not a piece of merch, but it's a fantastic piece of merch news. So there's a new retailer opening up, not just online, but an actual stall of selling only officially licensed Doctor Who stuff. And what I love about this is it's setting up stall in the central London, in the middle of central London, so it's going to be nice and easy to get to. So they're setting up stall in Covent Garden in London. Well, nice and easy if you live in the UK, I guess. I mean, not so good if you're listening to our US or Oz listeners. Sorry, guys. But yeah, if you're in the UK, this is going to be great. So they're going to set up this stall. It's going to sell just officially licensed Doctor Who products. They are also going to be selling these online. And we were discussing this before we started the podcast, because this, to me, this has come out of nowhere. I didn't know anything about these guys launching this site. I don't know if they're going to be selling, like, is it going to be a trade stall, or I don't know where they're getting the Doctor Who merch from, or how they're going to monitor it. But I do know that the site is launching with a small collection of around 50 pieces, which will expand and evolve as new stock arrives. You can register to get access to the site early and get 25% off. So I don't know, is this going to be exclusives? I'm really not sure at the minute, but it's quite exciting to see what these guys are going to be doing. I don't know if they're working with the BBC with this. Do you think?
Yes, I think so. The company is called the Time Meddlers, which is a very cool name, and just a couple of things that sound very good about it. So going on from Adam's point about the BBC, the only thing that they mention about working with the BBC is that all of the products that they're going to be selling, because they're BBC licensed, that means that any of the factories in which these goods are produced, they will be audited by the BBC. So that's to make sure that all the conditions are met officially. So things like worker safety, they're being paid fairly, all of that stuff. So that's kind of cool. And the other thing is, for me, that's really good, is it's the first time that a retailer is launching with a slightly different game plan than what you would normally expect. So here in the UK, I'd say over the last 10 years, if you go to any of sort of main towns or cities in the UK and walk down any of the high streets, it's not like it was. There's definitely a theme to this week's show, but back in the good old days, any of the high streets and town centres in some of the towns in the UK and cities, they had lots of shops that sold everything. Basically, you could go to any UK town, find clothes shops, toy shops, the whole thing. If you go to any of those now, you'll find a lot of shops have closed down. Lots of places where they've got signs up to let. It's just. It's a bit of a sad show, to be honest with you. So what these guys have done is they've said, look, we're not just going to go straight into a proper shop and start paying high rent, and we're not, So they're going to set up, as Adam said, at the Covent Garden. It's actually at the Covent Garden Jubilee Market. So it's going to be a market stall there. Anyone that's been to the Covent Garden Market, it's really, really cool. Although it's a market, it's not like a cheap little decorator's table with just an A4 sheet of paper that says the time. The Covent Garden Market is very upmarket, should I say. It's quite a posh market. So it's going to be I can imagine it being a really nice looking stall and so on. So based on that, it's obviously going to be cheaper than just renting a proper high street shop. And they're going to do the online thing as well, which is good. And they are going to ship worldwide, so that's all good as well. And then the other thing is, one of the things that they're quite keen on is to make sure that everything is done ethically and sustainably. So that means that all of their products will never be wrapped in plastic. All their T-shirts will come in 100% recyclable cardboard, and so all of the packaging is being designed and developed with the manufacturers. So they're working together to make sure that it's all sustainable, and all of the goods sent out will also everything's going to be recyclable in terms of packaging as well. So I love this, mate. I think this is such a good idea. And Adam and I were talking last week off air about another Doctor Who shop based in London, and essentially we said, I'm going to speak for myself here. I'm not going to speak for Adam unless he wants to. But my opinion on this other shop in London, which is called the Who Shop, I just feel like they don't do themselves many favours with some of the policies that they have in their shop. And we were saying that if we had a Doctor Who shop in London, we would do things quite differently, and we feel like we could, make a better go of it. And then these guys pop up, and they're doing some of the things that we spoke about. And it's just really, really good to see. It's good to see another option. So if you're in London and you want to go shopping for Doctor Who merch, this is obviously a great option for you to go to. So before, you had to travel out quite far to go to another Doctor Who shop. But as Adam said, this is central. So it's just great that it's popped up out of nowhere. There's no big fanfare. They've got this discount code. We'll put a link to the show notes in that as well. It's all good stuff. I assume that they'll see us there pretty regularly, I would say, mate.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about this. I'm just so intrigued about what they've actually got and what they're going to be getting and what the store's going to consist of and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And it's very close to Forbidden Planet. It's very close to a pub I like to go to right next to Gone. So it's kind of perfect. Yeah, I'm actually quite excited. So when does the store open? Is it now, or when are they opening?
No, so it's gonna open officially on the 5th of November.
5th of November, that's easy to remember.
Yep, but they are doing, like Adam said, a pre-launch sale where you get 25% off, and that runs from the 1st of November to the 3rd. So once they've got that pre-launch sale done, then they will launch officially. I think it is on the 5th of November. So
yeah,
that'll be all good. And again, we'll stick a link to it, or if you just go to timemeddlers.co.uk, that's their holding page at the moment. It's just put your name and email address in, and then you'll get a confirmation email saying that we'll send you your code on the 1st, or somewhere between the 1st and the 3rd. So yeah, excited about this one, dude.
Yeah, we'll have to try, and I was saying, like, I know things are going to be mad leading up to Christmas, and it'll be here and gone before we know it, but it'll be really cool. We'll have to try and see if we can get up there before Christmas, just to have a little look. If we can sort out a day, it'd be good.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent
stuff. So that's it for news and merch. Review time, bud.
That is it. So yeah, we're on to an 11th Doctor story this week, a two-parter written by the Chibnall, called Hungry Earth, Cold Blood.
What's that?
The ground feels strange.
The graves around you eat people.
Amy, no! No!
My death shall ignite a war, and every stinking ape shall be wiped from the surface of my beloved planet.
Those trace minerals weren't X marking the spot saying dig here, they were a warning. Stay away. Because while you've been drilling down, somebody else has been drilling up. Humans won't give up the planet.
So we destroy them.
There are fixed points through time where things must always stay the way they are.
Prepare them for execution.
This is not one of them. This is an opportunity. The future pivots around you. Here. Now.
What are you doing?
Protecting our race against the apes. This is war.
This ends here.
No! It only ends on our victory!
Give me back my family!
Executor!
Stay back! Don't do this! No! Fire!
Whoa.
That music.
Those trailers are so good.
They are good. I was just laughing because you put on the DVD menu and it's got that dun 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 dun. It's just all over it, and it's such a catchy piece, but I'm sick of it.
Oh no, I love it.
No, I'm not. No, I do like it, but you know what I mean. It's like, I don't know. I remember the first time I heard it, just thinking, "Oh, what an amazing theme! I love that." And then it's just like it just got played to death, didn't it? But it is a great piece of music.
Yeah, no, I read you. Yeah, series 5 and 6, they used it every 5 minutes. It felt like
just any time any action kicks in.
Yes, anytime he runs off, it's
Murray, quick! It's a fight scene. Oh wait, hang on, they're running down the corridor. Murray, quick! Yeah, oh yeah, hang on. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
Right, the plot then for this two-parter is thus. It's the year 2020.
Nearly.
And this company in South Wales, this is a very Welsh episode as well.
Yeah.
This company in South Wales have concocted this plan to drill super deep into the Earth's crust. And I think they've, at the time when we pick up at the story, they've drilled down 20 kilometres or 21 kilometres or something like that. And what they found is, while this is going on, there's been some suspicious activity with bodies being taken from graves and whatnot. And it centres around this family and this company. So you've got the dad who's sort of heading up the operation with this other lady, and his daughter and her husband and their son live in the village and so on. And so it's a mining village essentially in Wales. That's what I'm getting at. And it's now being used as a drilling thing. But what is happening is very deep down in the Earth's crust, a lot deeper than 21 kilometres, you've got this whole big society and huge city where the Silurians are, because many moons ago there was a big war between the humans and the Silurians, which the Doctor alludes on a little bit, and they were forced underground. And now the humans have obviously claimed the surface of the planet, and the drilling has disrupted a lot of the oxygen supply that the Silurians use underground. They're not happy about that, so they're drilling upwards, the humans are drilling downwards, and they kind of meet in this sort of show of force between the two of them. But then it evolves a little bit where the Doctor's trying very hard to sort of play peacekeeper, and he's trying to get them to talk and negotiate and say, look, you can share the planet, it's all good. Let's bring the hostages back, because one of the Silurians that attacks, she gets held hostage, but then she ultimately gets killed by the mum. So the deal's off now. So one of the military leaders for the Silurians, she's a very hot-headed, is thirsty for war and stuff. So as soon as she realises that her sister's been killed, who was the captive Silurian, it all kicks off, the talks break down. But then this old guy, who's part of the Silurian, he's like a doctor, researcher kind of guy. He, Eldane, who we spoke about earlier, Stephen Moore, he's basically sees eye to eye with the Doctor. He wants peace and so on. He recognises, after experimenting on lots of humans and monitoring their behaviour, he can see that they've changed to a degree for the better and all the rest of it. And it ends with not much more change, to be honest with you. The drilling site gets blown up. The dad and his business partner and romantic partner, it turns out, they stay underground with the Silurians so he can get his venom sorted out. And then the Doctor and just Amy do the off at the end. Rory's been sucked into the time crack
after being shot.
That sounds dodgy. Gets into so yeah, the Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. What do you got on this one, dude?
Wow. So anyone who's listened to last week's podcast might remember me saying that I have only ever watched this two-parter once, which is when it very first went out back in, when was it, 2010?
Yes, yeah, so I forgot to do my little quick roundup. Let me do that quickly.
Oh, right, yeah.
It was out on the 29th, it was first out on the 22nd and then the 29th of May 2010. They were directed by Ashley Way, written by the Chibbers, and yes, got the TARDIS team at that moment, so the Doctor, Amy and Rory, and then a fairly sizable supporting cast. As you were, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was just saying, so I only watched this once, and I was sort of thinking, why have I never gone back to this two-parter? Like, it's unusual. I don't think there are many stories that I can think of which I've literally only watched on transmission and never gone back to watch. So I was thinking, was it really bad or what? And in my head, I'm just thinking, I can't remember anything about it, so it's going to be unmemorable. That's I'm thinking that's all I can take from the fact that I've never gone back to this one. So I put it on last night. I'll admit I wasn't particularly excited to watch it. It was one of those ones, and I've said this a few times, where I was thinking, I need to put that on later to watch it for the podcast. It was that sort of thing, rather than like, so for example, next week, Sarah Jane, I'm absolutely buzzing. Can't wait to to get that on. But this one last night, I kept thinking, yeah, I must watch Doctor Who in a minute. I'll just do this, and I better sit down and watch that 2-parter then. Come on, let's get this done. It was that sort of a bit of a slog, so I was like, right, let's get this on. So I put it on, and I'll admit, the first episode, Hungry Earth, it was like I'd never seen it. It was like watching a brand new episode of Matt Smith's Doctor Who. I was sat there thinking that like there was nothing familiar about it apart from one bit, which was when the Amy and Rory wave to each other across the hill. They see that like their future selves, and they give each other a wave. And that's the only bit that I remembered in my mind. So, oh yeah, I remember that bit. So I've definitely watched this before. And I'll tell you what, by the time I got to the end of episode 1, I was quite pleasantly surprised. I thought, actually, that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad at all. I mean, it wasn't great, but it sort of built up, and you were getting to know the characters, and there was stuff going on, and I was getting quite drawn into it. And Matt was being brilliant as always. I love Matt's Doctor, and one of the things I love about him, I just want to say straight off the bat, is how he just, as soon as he walks into a situation, Matt takes control. I love it. That's what I want the Doctor to do. He walks in, right, what's going on? Clap of hands, come on then, what's happening here? And then even if they don't know who he is, they're like, you know, they realise that this guy's going to help. And there's a scene where a kid says to him, are you going to get my dad back or whatever? And he's like, no question. And I just love Matt's Doctor. This is why I would travel with him, because you know, even if you're going to get killed like poor old Rory, somewhere along the way, he will solve it. He will sort it out. And that's what I love about it. So quite pleasantly surprised by the first episode. Rather enjoyed it, actually. Didn't think it was amazing, but I enjoyed it. And I thought, oh, maybe this is a little undiscovered gem. Maybe maybe this is not as bad as I thought. Get to the second one, Cold Blood. And about 10 minutes in, I was just bored. I was like, what's happened? Well, the momentum has completely dropped off. We've got some people sat around a table chatting. Aim is falling asleep on the table looking bored, which is what I am. And it kind of, drifted on to its weak conclusion. Then the last 5 minutes are suddenly really good again. So suddenly the crack starts opening. Rory's been shot. The Doctor's putting his arm in the crack and things are happening. And I'm thinking, oh, this is good. But it's the last 5 minutes of the episode and it's got nothing to do with the story before that. So everything that had come before in this 2-parter just seemed to be inconsequential. Is that the right word? It just nothing really went anywhere. There was no real sort of point to the story. It was a bit of a rehash of the Third Doctor story, Solarians, where the Doctor just tries to get the Solarians and, humans to work together and become peaceful. So, yeah, it's a real mixed bag, really. I mean, sorry, I'm going on a bit. It's just that it was, it's a strange one, and it was so unfulfilling by the end. But great last 5 minutes. I can't help but think that the Moth might have just walked in at that point. As soon as that crack appeared and stuff started happening, I thought the Moth's walked in the room, hasn't he? He's come in, he's over Chibber's shoulders. Chibber's just wrapping up the episode with his boring old ending, and the Moth's come in and he's been like, hang on a minute. Right, the crack's coming back. What? Yeah, hang on, let me sit down. Let me sit down. I'm writing this bit. So the crack opens, Rory gets shot, Doctor pulls out a piece of the TARDIS sign, and I'm thinking, this is brilliant. This last 5 minutes are excellent. And then Amy sort of forgets Rory because of, that's what happens. He gets erased from her memory. Brilliant last 5 minutes. Really, like you said, really made me want to move on to the next episode to find out what happens and stuff. Even though we don't find out what happens, but So yeah, very mixed bag, mate. Enjoyed the first episode, didn't really enjoy the second conclusion part. Just felt it just went nowhere, this story. Really. There's some good stuff in there, like all the moral dilemma stuff. Mm-hmm. I think Matt held it together really nicely, as he often does. But it just, it's just a typical Chibbers. There's no heart to it. There's no... He never comes up with any interesting ideas. Do you know what I mean? It's always just like even the sort of central sort of plot of this story, which is, just getting humans and Solarians to work together. I mean, it's been done. Is the Third Doctor did that back in 1960 or 70, whatever it was. It's not even a very, that's what annoys me about Chivers. He just never comes up with anything interesting or new. It's just, but and the humans are bad. We're all bad. We're all going around shooting, which is true, to be fair. But, you know, yeah. Sorry, I'm going to let you speak now. Over to you.
Yeah, so...
You loved it.
I didn't mind this one, actually. I wouldn't say that I loved it, but I certainly didn't mind it. I thought this was a good, especially episode 1, The Hungry Earth. I thought that was a good, just because it was a really decent, suspenseful story, that one. Because you had the Silurians who were, you didn't get to see them properly until near the end, or sort of 2/3 of the way through that first story. So they were you only heard them, didn't you? Know when that bit where the Doctor says they're coming up to the Earth, we need to get out of here quickly, and then when the young lad's trapped outside the church and you can hear them coming, that hissing sound. So that was really cool, that bit, and you didn't get to see them properly, and until the Doctor takes the mask off of what's the character called? He gets captured. I think it is.
Don't ask me. Ambrose was, I don't know. I won't remember the names.
Yeah.
Let's call her Silurian 1.
Silurian number 1, yeah. I think her name was... Oh, I don't know.
Was it Ambrose, or was that the...
No, Ambrose was the military lead. I thought it was Alea, that's right.
That's it, Alea.
Alea, yes. So you didn't get to see... And then the design has come on a long way. So if you think back to... the Silurians back in the Pertwee story, Doctor Who and the Silurians, the design is very, very different.
I much prefer it as well. I've never really liked this design. I'll be honest with you. I've never really liked this redesign of the Silurians.
Oh, you don't? I actually quite, yeah. Because don't get me wrong, I love the classic design. There's just a something cool about. In fact, there's what box set does that come from? I think it's called
Beneath the Surface or something like that.
Beneath the Surface. Yeah, you're right, mate. Yeah, the box set. It's got the Sea Devils, Warriors of the Deep, and this one on there. And that is cracking because the Sea Devils look amazing, that original design, and then these look really good. But I will be honest, I do quite like these new ones purely because I think the quality of the prosthetics and the makeup is amazing. Like
it is good, yeah, in terms of that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and because they're a bit more streamlined as well, the actors can move, quite freely in because they've only got makeup from the head down to the base of the neck, I suppose. Whereas in the old days, the Silurians, this is not a negative. They did look a bit clumsy, but that was the charm of most of the suits that
I'm thinking of Warriors of the Deep when the blimming costumes, the neck pieces hanging out, not even been tucked in properly.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like the prosthetics, whatever, that looks amazing. I don't know. It's just something. They're a bit too human for me, and I get why they've done that because that kind of fits in with the story and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me. They're missing the third eye, and where's the third eye? They've got to do the head wobble.
Yeah, I think in terms of, I'm not going to get into the scientific reasoning behind it because that would be sort of non-applicable. But I do feel like if you're going to tell a story about a race of beings that inhabited the Earth prior to humans, in this case Homo reptilia, I think, and if their technology is advanced way more than ours and so on, then I think you do need to have them a little bit more not human-like, but a little bit more like they come across as intelligent beings because they're the Silurians in the old days with that third eye, and that you just couldn't imagine them coming up with really technical advancements and all that stuff. Whereas I think if you're going to have that story about two races who are going to potentially share the planet, and one of them's very technically advanced and medically advanced as well, and all that stuff, then yeah, I just feel you need something that's not just sort of clumsily walking around and that stuff. So that's my point of view. I don't get me wrong, I've got a lot of love for the old style, the old design, but I do like these new ones. I do think they're...
Yeah, no, I get it. While we're talking about the design, though, I want to ask you something because one thing I really didn't like about the new design was this lizard tongue feature that they seem to have got. Where'd that come from?
Oh, the venom.
this tongue lashing thing that happens. I mean, it looks awful. It just doesn't suit my personal sort of image of the Silurian. Like, I just thought that was awful. And so unnecessary as well. They've got a gun. I mean, what's they need this lizard tongue for? But I just wondered what you thought of that, because I mean, we've never had that from a Silurian before.
No, and I think it's in an attempt to make them more scary. Because if you think about that, some of those scenes in the Hungry Earth, they do the hissing sound and the sort of creepy movement and the masks that they have. That's the other thing that the original Silurians didn't have, is that silver mask. I mean, there is an element here of a bit of plagiarism, a little bit, that we've seen in Doctor Who a few times, especially Modern Who, where I feel like the Silurians in this one were led by the Predator movies, especially the original Predator. So the mask that they have on their face is the silver metal thing. And there's that scene where you see the point of view of the Silurian with that mask on, and you see the heat signature version, and then it, you see those different things. And they've literally pulled that straight out of the Predator films, which is, okay, which is cool. But I do feel like it was just to try and make them come across as quite scary, and
they were scarier when they were just in the shadows. I think that whole build up in episode 1 was really good. I actually prefer the look of them when they've got that mask on. I thought, just because of the eyes and things, I thought I think they look better with the mask on. Personally, I quite like that.
Yeah, no, they did look cool. Yeah, with the mask on, it was cool. But
I'm not sure about the guns either. I mean, actually, I suppose the guns sort of fit into the classic era, I suppose. They look a bit like hairdryers.
The hairdryers, yeah.
Big old hairdryer gun.
They look like something out of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yes, yeah, they do.
That kind of Roald Dahl design to it. But yes, in a nutshell, I really don't mind the new design. I've got a lot of love for the original one. They've got a certain charm, as a lot of classic Who does, but I think it's kind of cool. What did you think to the idea of doing this over 2 parts? Do you feel like this could have been done in a 1 episode, or?
Well, it's weird actually, because when I got to the end of the first episode, because from my very vague memory of watching this the first time, I thought it was really padded. I remember thinking, God, this is really drawn out and boring. So when I got to the end of the first episode, having enjoyed it for the most part, I thought, oh, actually, maybe this is a good 2-parter. And it's certainly, I think there was certainly enough in there in part 1. I don't think part 1 struggled at all. Although it's interesting because nothing much particularly happens in part 1, but there's a good tension build. It's a great build-up episode to part 2. But it's part 2 where I think it really gets padded out. Really, I think things could have wrapped up a lot quicker. So I don't know. You probably could have condensed it into 1 part, but I think there was enough there for 2 parts. But I just don't think it was utilised enough. I mean, I think the scene where they're having the discussion around the sort of dining room table could have been done a lot better. That it's really weakly written. It's really weakly acted as well. Actually, that's the one bit. I mean, the rest of it, I think everyone's pretty good. And I think, but that particular scene where they're negotiating is a really flat scene. And it should have been quite strong, because it's like the crux of the episode, really, is where they're trying to negotiate. So that let it down for me. And that's when it got really boring. And I think there was a few reasons for that. Overall, I think Ashley Way's direction is brilliant. I think it's shot really nicely, this episode. It looks really good. Even the effects, I think, stand up pretty good in this one. Apart from the tongue, I think that looks awful. But, the actual visuals, the settings and stuff look really good. The greens, it is green, isn't it? Because I'm colourblind, but the green colours that we get coming through. The only things that I would say, which I think could have been directed better or shot better or let it down, was that negotiation scene and the cliffhanger to episode 1. Like, I'm not sure what happened there, because it's the way it's shot, it's a really weak cliffhanger. It's not necessarily what's in the script, because the Doctor's like, it's quite a big sort of reveal, but it's just a shot of their backs looking over. I'm thinking, I don't know, that should have been made much more exciting. The fact he's like, oh my gosh, it's not just a few of them, it's a whole colony or something. He says, doesn't he?
Civilization.
And then we just get
yeah.
and then just the theme kicks in. I was thinking that should have been a lot stronger, that cliffhanging, because that's quite a big reveal. But I think I would probably put that down to the way it's shot, really. So the direction, maybe, but yeah.
No, I read you. I agree with that. Yeah, I think it's one of those awkward ones for me where it would have been a perfect part and a half.
Yeah,
as opposed to a two-parter. I think there is slightly. It would have felt rushed if they had have squeezed this into one episode.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they didn't do that, but I do feel like the second part. I agree with you. It does feel.
It runs out of steam a bit.
A little bit, yeah. It's certainly not as strong as the first part. But what would have been cool for me is to see a bit more of the defection from Eldane. He has that big. Basically, him and Ambrose don't see eye to eye. She's very right. I'm up for a scrap. He's like, no. I've observed them. They're not as bad. Calm down. He's the one that grasses on her. Essentially,
calm down, dear.
Yeah. So I'd have loved to have seen him working a bit more throughout that story with the Doctor, because when the Doctor and Eldane are together, they're very cool. There's that lovely moment where the Doctor puts his hand on his shoulder and says, "I love you a little bit."
Yeah,
Eldane. It's a really cool. So I'd like to have seen those guys working a bit more. That would have put a bit more into that second part. But yeah, it does feel a bit paddy, I suppose.
It just feels a bit, just like the pace seems to drop off. There's so much brilliant build up in the first part. And there's some really good, like you said about the bit with the kid at the door, some really great, suspenseful, creepy moments. And second part just seems to be a bit sort of plodding. And also we get this weird voiceover thing in part 2.
We do, yeah.
Which kind of did not work at all for me. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, there wasn't any voiceover in part 1, was there? If there was, I didn't really sort of pick up on it.
No, there wasn't, no.
But part 2, suddenly we got the voiceover, and that didn't work for me at all, because especially in the middle of the episode, I can sort of forgive it at the start because it kind of just setting the tone, and that's all right. I guess that kind of works. But in the middle of the episode, he suddenly starts telling the story, and I thought, I'm going to put this down to Chris Chibnall, really. Like, it's as if he didn't write it to be explained through the visuals, so he puts a voiceover to tell us what's happening, and it just felt lazy to me.
It did.
So he's like, it's like, what's he saying? So the Silurians realized that they must go back into the chambers, and I'm thinking, well, we don't need this awful voiceover to tell us what. Yeah, so that I thought was a misstep as well. And I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the voiceover is only in part 2, and
it is. Yeah.
It just didn't work for me at all. I didn't get why we needed it. It felt cheesy and tacky, and
it kind of feels like that's what you would do at the very beginning of episode 2. If you wanted to do a bit of a, like the old classic last week on Doctor Who, like a bit of a recap, it's like, up to this point, there's a bit of a narration. It was by, what was his name? Richard Hope, wasn't it, who played Malachi? And so his voice is good, don't get me wrong. He's a great actor, but it just felt just shoehorned in because they didn't really have much else going on at that point in the story. You could tell it might not have been, but to me, it felt like that was a piece of voiceover that was done after the fact. So when they had gone through the edit.
Yes, exactly how I felt. Yeah.
It felt like they made
we need something here.
Exactly. Yeah. They made a decision. So like, well, we can't really progress the story because it's ironic really, because apparently this ran over. They actually had an hour's worth of footage for each,
really?
So they had to chop stuff out. So whatever they chopped out, they probably then thought, well, the pacing's wrong. Something's wrong. We're not progressing the plot enough here. Let's do a nice little sweepy 70s Star Wars montage a little bit with a voiceover. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't realise they'd cut stuff out. That definitely. I mean, that explains a bit about the pacing as well, because I think the pacing in the first episode is pretty good. But I think it's quite uneven in the second part. So that would explain it if they've sort of chopped it about a bit.
Yes. And then going on story-wise, the overall kind of thing, I suppose, that Chibbers was trying to put across is there's good intention, but there's still problems.
Yeah.
So the human race, and so there are essentially the Doctor's trying to say, look, the human race, there's a few bad apples, but on the whole, they've evolved a lot since you guys last met, and they've, they're amazing people. And then you've got the same thing that's kind of mirrored with the Silurians. You've got Eldane, who's very nice, and Malika, and potentially a lot of other Silurians. They're all good, but then you've got a few bad apples like Ambrose and stuff. And so he's saying that, look, with good intentions, you guys should get together and talk and negotiate how you're going to share the planet and stuff. But then, the mum, the boy's mum, I always forget her name. I think her name's Mo. Could be Mo.
I'm not sure. She
ends up killing Alea, and it all falls apart. So then you have that, things are still not right. Because I think it's actually Malika that says later on in episode 2, is like, we're not ready to share the planet yet. He kind of signs off the whole thing, doesn't he? When everything's collapsing and the Doctor and everyone's got to escape, he basically says, look, we're not ready. So I think that's what the Chibbers is trying to say. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, that I found. I mean, that is interesting. I do think there's the actual moral dilemma of the story. I think is quite good because that sort of mirrors, it shows. I mean, we all know that the human race is very flawed, especially if you look at the world today. And that I definitely thought that was a good part of it, showing if we had to share our planet, would we? We all know that there are so many people out there that wouldn't. So. Yeah, that makes us look at ourselves and question it. And that part of the story was all good, I thought. And I think Matt particularly sells that well. I think, because as I said, not particularly original idea from Chibnall there, but I think Matt really brings that part of the script to life. His disappointment when he finds out that Alea has been killed. Like the way he goes from being delighted to see them, they're here, the negotiations are happening, this is all good, and then he sees in their face and his face just drops. Matt really sells that part of the story to me. I thought, oh wow, he's going to get angry now. This is going to kick off, and how's this going to resolve? So that was quite strong, I thought. But again, it's Matt kind of holding together the story. I think
he's the glue, isn't he? Yeah,
he's definitely the glue. I think he's absolutely fantastic in this. There are elements of the story which, like, there's a bit where they all escape from the Silurians at the end. There's about 10 of them, I think, surrounded them, and somehow they that was badly shot and badly written, but again, Matt's sort of humour carries the episode across, and he goes brilliantly from sort of humour to being very serious. Like, you could see in his face that moment that he was gonna, his disappointment that they'd killed Alea, and his anger and frustration, and just like, oh, you've done it again, you've let me down. I think you said it best. He's the glue in this episode for me.
Yeah, it was a good setup as well, that bit when Alea is captured and she's being held in the church, and then he has to go off, so he leaves her in charge. He leaves he leaves the three. So is it the dad, the mum, and the lady, Nasreen, with them to say, look after her, don't let anything happen to her. You could tell from that point that
you knew
one of them was gonna buckle, but you just didn't know who at that point. And and it's that the more I watch Matt Smith, so as we go through our reviews and we go back and watch them, every single time I watch a Matt Smith story, it just another click goes round on the dial of just his epic awesomeness as the Doctor. Even in some of the weaker moments, and even in some episodes from Series 7, where some of them are but not great at all, really not great, but Matt Smith is just amazing.
I love his Doctor.
Good,
Yeah.
So he really, sometimes, like we were saying about the second part, but it's a little bit paddy and the pace goes a little bit. But Matt Smith doesn't, though. He never loses his energy and his humour and just his great ability to go from sort of happy-go Troughton-esque, that kind of Doctor, to immediately, like you said, that bit where they're carrying the body in, and his face just immediately turns to, oh no.
Yeah.
Disappointment.
I think he's got the charm of Troughton.
Yes.
He's got that sort of very sort of innocent charm that Troughton had. That, I'm not saying they're the same, but there's definitely that essence that he carries over from that Doctor, I think. And he can switch it to being angry but without shouty, if you know what I mean. He's got this sort of underlying rage, which Tennant also embodied, didn't he? That sort of underlying rage. But Matt's is more, because he's so charming and sweet and almost a bit more innocent than Tennant. It's good when he switches like that, and because you can just see that the sort of happy facade has dropped, because it's like, that sort of the rage that the Doctor has inside him of disappointment with trying to help these people, find a resolution, and they've just let him down again. And it's like, you stupid apes. Of course, if it was Capaldi's Doctor, it'd be going mad sort of thing. But I love the charm of Matt's Doctor. I know that in previous podcasts we've given Jodie a hard time about waving the Sonic around endlessly, so I will be fair and say that I think, especially in this two-parter, that Sonic was way overused. I was getting a bit sick of Matt using it, to be honest with you. That's about the only sort of criticism I would give about his Doctor, and it's, that's not really down to Matt himself, it's just the writing, isn't it? But I was a bit same with Jodie. Every time we got the Sonic out, I was like, oh, for goodness sake, stop using the Sonic for everything. Like, he uses it to open doors, he uses it to disarm the Silurians, he uses it to take readings of the Earth. It's like, I don't know, it does get overused. So I know a lot of people said at the time, because we always say how much we love Matt Smith, and when we criticise Jodie a lot for the use of the Sonic, I did notice it a lot in this two-parter. I think it was overused, personally.
No,
and I'm going to blame Chris Chibnall. He wrote it.
The Jibbers, yeah. He seems to like the Sonic a lot. Yeah, you're right. There's a bit where he finds, when the Silurians are somehow projecting the dome over the village, he gets a Sonic out and scans
he gets a Sonic out there as well. He uses it a heck of a lot in this two-parter.
Yeah, scans people and everything. And then there's a comedic little moment where Rory says, use the Sonic. He's like, it doesn't work on wood. And he's like, oh, that's rubbish.
Oh, don't diss the Sonic. That made me laugh. No, that was good.
Yeah, so that was cool. But then, like literally 2 or 3 minutes later, he's got the Sonic back out and he's doing stuff.
He did use other things, though. I mean, this is the other thing I love about Matt's Doctor. So he's got these almost Sonic shades, actually. Almost. Yeah. He's got these shades that he uses, but he carries them off. I think that's a funny little scene, because he does the whole... Something about Matt's movements is just, funny. And he also uses a catapult from nowhere. He gets a catapult out of his pocket, which is, again, very Troughton, isn't it? Or Fourth Doctor, whichever. What does he just pick up a rock or something?
Yeah, fires it at the dome, doesn't he?
Yeah, that was a nice moment. That's a very Doctorish moment that I liked as well. So, yeah, it's good to see him using other things rather than Sonic, but I did think it got overused,
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also, before we get on to some characters, there's also a theme that runs through Doctor Who, and that is the Doctor's constant forgiveness of humans, even when they let him down. Because there's a scene towards the end where Mo, I'm going to call her Mo, I'm sure that's her name, where Mo is leaning against the doorway of the church, and everything's concluded now, and you can tell that she's feeling guilty about what's happened and stuff. Kind of. I think she's feeling kind of 80% guilty, but 20%, I still stand by what I did because I did it for the safety of my family, sort of thing. But the Doctor's still smiling away, and he's not angry with her anymore. And I think he says something like, just make sure that, with your son, you bring him up to be the best that humans can be. Don't let your failure kind of rub off on him. You bring him up differently. And so I think that, and we have it a few times as well with the Tennant era as well. I think Eccleston mentions it once as well. Well, basically when he's talking to an alien, any kind of alien race, and the Doctor's really trying hard. There was I've forgotten what Tennant episode it is, and they're about to, blow up the Earth or something, and he's like, no, they've got so much more. They're very young. Humans are in the infancy of their time, basically, and they've got so much more to give and evolve. And Matt Smith's Doctor's like that a couple of times, and this is one of those stories where yes, he's been let down, and he's, the humans have once again shown that, they can't really get it right at the moment, but he still forgives. He's still happy that everything's concluded and everything's cool. So there is that theme, I suppose, that subtly runs through, especially modern Doctor Who, anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, I think it might be Ambrose actually. I'm just looking through the thing. I think Ambrose is the woman who kills.
Yeah.
The Silurian.
Oh, is she? Oh,
I think so. Yeah. I don't know. I get as regular listeners know, we get very confused with the different characters' names. It doesn't matter how hard I try either, and I think you might be the same. Like, I'm watching this last night. I'm thinking, right, yeah, I've got all their names in my head. I think I know who's who. It goes out the window as soon as we start to record. But anyway, people will know what we mean.
I'm going to check this out. Hold on.
Yeah, because Alea's the Silurian that gets killed. And I think it's Ambrose that kills her.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eldane. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Oh, Restak. Restak is her name. The Silurian that's the military, Alea's sister.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, there we go.
Yes. So we've got that wrong all the way through, but there we go.
Yeah. Our listeners won't be surprised. Well, regular ones anyway.
No, of course not. No. Okay, some characters then. So the family in Wales, to be honest with you, I don't have any serious complaints really, because sometimes the supporting cast in Who sometimes can be a bit hit and miss. But to be honest with you, I didn't really have any complaints, to be honest with you. I thought the dad and his partner Nazreen, I thought they were. So is it Tony, the dad, or is Tony the older guy?
Which one? The one that stops to? Are you on about the kid's dad?
Yeah. So the kid's dad, who he's reading to in the village at the beginning, and then he gets captured. He gets sucked through the hole.
So Tony's the one who's been infected. And stays behind. He's the old guy, Tony.
Oh, so Mo is the night watchman. He's the guy that gets sucked through the ground. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So Tony and Mo. So Robert Pugh, who played Tony, and Alan Reglan, who played Mo, and also Mira Sayre, who played Nasreen. I thought those Welsh characters at the beginning, I thought they were pretty good. And you also have so Tony plays the infected guide, isn't he? He's the guy that gets whipped by one of the Silurian tongues, and is the venom spreading and stuff.
He's also in love with Nazreen, isn't he? There's this love thing that suddenly comes a bit out of nowhere, but they just about get away with it.
Pretty much, yeah. And then you've got Mo, who's the guy that gets captured and stuff. Those guys I thought did okay. I thought as actors, especially Nazreen, when she forms that quite a good friendship with the Doctor as they go through the story. Any complaints from your side?
No, actually, no. I thought the supporting cast were decent. Yeah, I was a little bit worried about Ambrose at the start. She seemed a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Not as good as an actor as the rest. At the beginning, she just seemed a little bit amateur. That's the word I thought at the start. But actually, she got better. I don't really have any complaints about the cast at all. I mean, even young Samuel Davis as Elliot, the kid, I thought he was fairly decent. Because sometimes, the younger actors, they could be a bit cringy and awful. But, I mean, he wasn't too bad. No, I really don't have any complaints at all. I thought Tony was good. I agree with you. I like the relationship between Nazreen and the Doctor, especially when she's like, I'm coming in the TARDIS. He's like, no, you're not. Oh, come on then. And all that that sort of comedy between the two was quite fun. So, yeah, no complaints about the supporting cast at all, really. Yeah, I thought it was decent. There's a nice shot of the Doctor and Ambrose in that archway at the end as well. Those two together. So, no complaints from the supporting cast, really. Yeah. Did a decent job.
Yeah, good. And what about the Silurians then? So we've spoken about Eldane, Stephen Moore. He was... So the two of them, so Malika and Eldane, the kind of elder Silurians. They're kind of similar in character. I think it's why Eldane went off to get him to try and stop Rastek. So yeah, I think those guys were pretty good, especially Richard Hope. I thought his character was really good. He's the guy that that does the voiceover weird bit in episode 2.
He's the one who gets killed, isn't he? He's the one that she shoots. The Silurian shoots him, because I was thinking, why kill him? That seemed really unnecessary. The main Silurian, female Silurian that's sort of leading the whole thing. She just turns around and shoots him, doesn't she, at one point? And I thought that was a little sad, a little unnecessary. Because I quite liked him. I thought he was a good character. And I also liked Stephen Moore, who we spoke about earlier, who sadly has just passed away. I thought his performance was nice, quite understated. He was, more sort of serious than the rest. So, yeah, I thought both of those were good.
Yeah, no, they were good. Yeah. And then we had... So it was quite clever the way they did all the other Silurians, because they kept those metal masks on, so they didn't have to have all the makeup applied to all of their face. So that was quite clever. But and then we have Neve McIntosh, who played both parts. She played Alea and Restak. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and she comes back as what's the Paternoster gang?
The Pater, she comes back as what's her face. What's the character that she comes back as?
Can't remember.
I love that. Yeah, just moving on.
Madame Vastra, isn't it? That's right.
Vastra. That's
Vastra.
The one.
So she comes back as Vastra later on. I thought again pretty decent. There's some quite good chilling moments with the Silurians. I think when the bit when they're just stood there still on their little launch pads, and you're sort of almost expecting them to suddenly come alive, but they don't. So moments like that are pretty good. They're quite creepy in parts, I think. But then again, then you get the scene, like I said, later on when they seem useless. Like there's 10 of them surrounding the Doctor and that, and they can't fire a gun for... I can't say the word because it's naughty, but they can't even shoot straight, and they manage to escape from it. So they're a bit undermined, I think, in that later scene. But no, generally pretty good. I thought the Silurians, all the performances were pretty good. They did what they needed to do, quite menacing.
Yes. Yeah. And Neve McIntosh she is good. She is good as a Silurian. What about Amy and Rory then? Because we've spoken about those guys a little bit, but they were good in this, but not too much to do, really. I mean, Amy gets captured and then she gets rescued, and then she gets assigned to do the negotiation talks and stuff. But especially Rory got a bit sidelined, I thought.
I think this is the problem, actually, because I think they're a great TARDIS team. I love the 11th Doctor, Amy and Rory. I think the chemistry between those three people is brilliant. I always enjoy it. I think the humour between Rory and the Doctor's good and all that stuff. But it is often the case that the writers don't seem to know what to do with them. And they often write Amy is the same. So she's always moaning. Like at the start of the episode, she's moaning because she was wanting to go on holiday, but she's got to help save the planet first. You know what I mean? Sometimes I just think, they're a bit lazy with the writing with these. It starts off quite good for Rory, like the whole stuff when he gets taken by the mum. Quick, come and look at this grave, and there's some interesting stuff for him at the start and some good humour. But then again, then he just sort of gets pushed into the background a bit. Whereas Amy sort of comes into the forefront in the second episode when she's trying to escape, and she's, nicks the guy's little device which frees them all. So she gets a good moment, but then again, she's just kind of given nothing to do after that. So nothing wrong with their performances. I think Arthur Darvill was always good with the sort of comedic looks and dialogue that he's given. Karen given a standard performance, nothing amazing but good. But yeah, just as usual, the writers just don't seem to know what to do with the characters. It's always nice when we get scenes with the three of them together. I think that we always get some nice dialogue and stuff there. But as soon as they're split up, they just seem to get lost in the story, really. But nothing, no complaints about their actual performance, though.
No, I agree.
I thought they were good. They're always very likable, I think.
Yeah, in this one they are. Yeah. And we've spoken about Matt Smith, but just to reiterate, just great performance as always.
Yeah, I just really like Matt. I mean, this is his first season. I just kept thinking back to when we were reviewing that one recently, which was the first story you recorded, and how good he was in it straight off the bat. So I don't know where this came in terms of production, but it feels to me like he's absolutely the Doctor. Even though it's his first season, he just seems to be. As I said to you earlier, I love the fact that he just walks in and he's straight into the whatever's going on. Right, what's happening here? I just love that. Takes control of the room straight away. In terms of the Doctor and his performance, I just think he's great. Really, really likable. I love Matt's Doctor. Really, really do.
Yep, he's amazing.
Every time, and great in that end bit as well. I really do love the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, when she's like, what are you doing? Don't put your arm in there. And he's like, come on, let's live a little and all this. He's great at doing that sort of stuff, you know. And I don't know about you, I couldn't remember what happened. I was like, God, does he get sucked in? What goes on here? And then he brings out a bit of the TARDIS. It's, it's brilliant stuff. I still just get the feeling the Moff wrote those last 5 minutes.
Yeah. Of course.
What happens to Rory, by the way? I genuinely can't remember. He's shot, he's dead, he's sucked into the crack. Does he end up at the Pandorica or something?
Yeah.
How does he come back into it?
Well, we don't know. So, a few episodes later, the Pandorica opens episode, I think.
Is this about the 5th time he's been shot, or is this early days? He gets killed off about 10 times, doesn't he?
Yeah, so he turns up as one of those Roman centurions.
Yeah.
Who guards the something to do with the Pandorica, and the Doctor seems bewildered. He can't explain how Rory is back. So, I don't think we get an explanation as to why he's back at that particular time, at that episode. Right. But we don't see him for a few episodes.
No, I might have to do a bit of at some point, might have to do a bit of a Series 5 rewatch, because I think it does feel like the Moffat had a sort of a fairly decent beginning to end idea in his head. Like it, I think when I go back and rewatch it, I think it'll flow better than I remembered, like watching it each week, trying to piece it together. Whereas I think Series 6 gets very muddled. This one, I felt like he definitely sort of knew where he was going with certain elements like that. He knew he was going to bring Rory back and stuff. And but I just can't remember. I know he's not a Silurian. I know he's a Centurion at some point, but I just couldn't remember how it all clicks back. What do you think about the Doctor? Like, so obviously Rory has an engagement ring, doesn't he? Which falls on the TARDIS floor when the Doctor's trying to get Amy to remember Rory, but obviously he gets sucked into the crack and her memory of him is erased. So she's forgotten Rory by the end of this story, and the Doctor's like, obviously I know we're going into the next one now, but it seems to me like the Doctor he just carries on as if Rory never existed. I'm like, it's a bit harsh, that, isn't it? It's a bit cold.
Yeah.
But what else can he do, I suppose? But
yeah, I was going to say,
he hides the ring, I assume. He just takes the ring and doesn't tell her about it, and I don't know.
I think he has to. I think if he tries to mull on that stuff, because he can't explain it to Amy, can he? He can't really, because she could. It's kind of it's done in a good way where she all of a sudden wakes up and she has no recollection at all of him. So for him to start banging on about this guy Rory and stuff without knowing exactly how to get him back into her memory, he's kind of wasting his time a little bit, isn't he? So he has no choice but to
just crack on. But I think there's, but I kind of like that because that's the sort of manipulative side of the Doctor that's always there in the background. Like the Seventh Doctor and Ace, and he does have that side to his character, which I think sort of comes into play a little bit here. So I quite like that. But a bit like you, I was intrigued to watch the next episode to see how Rory came back into it. And then when I started to watch Vince and the Doctor, I remembered that no, it's not this one he comes back into it. We don't find out for another whatever episodes yet. But I like the timey-wiminess of, because I don't always like the timey-wiminess, but I like the fact that they were waving to each other at the start and then Amy sees just herself at the end and she's like, oh, I'm waving to myself, and she's like, oh, I could have swore I saw someone else. And I did like that. I really did like that scene. Those little
timey-wimey, it can get a little bit.
Well, it was simple, wasn't it? It wasn't trying to do anything. It's just a simple. Because again, this comes back to Matt's lovely performance. Like at the start, he gets out these little binoculars and he's like, he can't quite believe it. And he's like, what? Hang on a minute. What? All that stuff, all those sort of things that he does. I just love all that stuff.
Yeah. I concur, my good man. Right, scores.
Yeah, this is difficult for me.
Yeah, I found this a puzzler to put a score on this one. It's you to go first, though. So
Yeah, well, it's weird because this is why I'm struggling, right? So Hungry Earth, I rated 7.5 out of 10. Quite enjoyed that one. Mm-hmm. Then I got to this one and I rated it a 5.5 out of 10. So there's quite a big divide there. So do I go in the middle? Am I a 6.5 or an overall score? I mean, 6.5 or 7? I don't know. I really like that first part. I think I'm a 7, but is it that good? I don't know. I'll go 7. 7.
You're going to go 7.
I'll go 7. Well, I did think the first one was good, and the second one, although it's not great, it's still quite watchable. So I don't know. Is 7 too high? Ooh. What are you going?
Yeah, so I had a similar dilemma. So for the Hungry Earth, I had that as an 8.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then Cold Blood, I had that as a 6.5.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to go in the middle somewhere. So I'm going to give it a 7.5.
7. Okay, well, I'll give it a 7 then.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
I think that's fair.
So I think we're in agreement there that the first part's definitely stronger, but the second part just lacks a bit of substance, I guess.
Yeah, it does. It just doesn't feel. It feels a bit lightweight and a bit unsatisfactory, unfulfilling. Yeah,
that's the word. What did our lovely listeners think? We had a couple of audio clips in. The first one, this is our regular reviewer, never misses a week, old Sammy from Down Under.
G'day, Gary and Adam. Sammy Satine here. So, the Hungry Earth Cold Blood, the return of the Silurians. I like this story. The Silurian doctor / scientist, I like him. Neve McIntosh's Leia, the Silurian, not her best known Silurian, Madame Vastra, whom we meet next series, is very good. Though this is essentially Doctor Who and the Silurians with a happier ending. I like the Silurian cave system. Amy is quite good. And oh my goodness, they killed Rory. Well, they erased him from time. Poor Rory. I give it 7 Silurians out of 10. See ya.
7.
7 Silurians, same as me.
Yeah.
And yeah, nearly you.
Yeah, nearly, yeah. Thank you very much, Sammy. 7 there. Let's go on to Luke Malloy.
Hello, Gary and Adam. I hope you're having a good show this week. The Hungry Earth. I always surprisingly enjoy this one more than I think I will. Amy getting sucked into the ground is really done quite epically. I really enjoy that scene. And the capturing a monster scene as well is really good. But there's little neat ideas as well. The slingshot, Matt Smith's thermal sunglasses, and them seeing themselves on the hill, seeing all the versions of themselves, which is still possible with the ending that they get, and in my mind happens sometime during the Power 3. I'd like to see a spin-off novelisation of that. Cold Blood, the Silurian city looks amazing and pretty much makes the episode. The effects are really good for every scene set in the city. The evil Silurians are cool, and the ending is so good and so dark with the Doctor dragging Amy away as Rory's erased from time. Oh, it's dark and it's fab. Overall, an 8 out of 10. It's always better than I think it is, and I just love this era, this Matt Smith era of Doctor Who. Thanks again.
8 out of 10.
He's got, that's a very good point about the scene with Amy getting sucked into the earth was fantastic. I think that's what really drew me into episode 1. I was like, this is really good stuff. Why have I not watched this again? Yeah, yes. Better than I remembered as well. So yeah, I agree with you, Luke.
Yes. Yeah, cheers for that, Luke. Okay, over on Twitter, Jordan Shortman, one of our writers, says, it's quite a good story, not brilliant in my opinion, but not the worst two-parter I saw from the Moff era. Brings the Silurians back in an enjoyable way and shows both the good and bad sides of humanity and the Silurians. I really liked Nazarene, though, and wish she was a companion. She was cool. She was up for it.
Yeah, she might have been interested, because there was a good bit of rapport between her and Matt. So, yeah.
Yes. Jack... at Hooverneer says, Series 5 is my favourite series, and this is one of the main reasons why. Amazing two-parter, great casting, and Mira Sayal, a very modern and very different version of the 1970s Silurian, executed perfectly, very controversial, but 9.5.
Oh, right. Yeah, good.
Very high score. Edward Giluli says, disappointing story that does not do justice in either design nor story to the much anticipated return of the Silurians. Matt Smith, as per usual, is the best thing by a mile, a 6 out of 10. Caitlin Dalek 100 says, not my favourite, nor is it the best Silurian story ever, but it has a lot of good moments in it. The Silurians making a return are used like they should be and are used really well in the story. It's creepy and scary. One of Chibnall's best writing for Who, 8 out of 10. Rick Moran says, I wasn't fond of part 1. I was bored with most of it, and the same for part 2. Watching it, I keep thinking we've been here before, nothing original. The action scenes are pretty good, but overall it's just unsatisfying. It was too long, over 2 episodes, a 5 out of 10.
I agree, nothing original, Rick. Yeah, certainly. That's what I mean about Chibbers. It's not exactly an original story, but yeah.
Yes. Genesis of Androzani says, typical average Chibnall stuff.
Yeah.
Basically a copy and paste of the Silurians, but without any of the parts that made the original brilliant. Instead of what you get is dry, bland and meaningless. Only parts that bump it up are the performances of Smith and crew, a 6.5. Game Troller Prime says, hints of 13's character here in 11. Way too goofy, but then takes normal issues and takes them way too serious. Is actually stupid in some scenes. Like the kid, tries to hammer home the positive message that doesn't connect. Oh dear.
I thought that was a lovely scene with the kid, actually, and he was saying about his dad. But
yes. And then over on Facebook, we had Lawrence Baxter says, hi guys, great to have you back. I love Series 5 and tend to be a bit uncritical of it, as I remember liking all of it when it was being broadcast. This one always makes me, always feels like a comfortable watch without being that special. He goes on to say, on the all-time scale of Chibnall episodes, this is near the top for me, but a 6.5. Charlie Turner, these are quite long reviews on Facebook, by the way, so I'm only going to read a bit of them out. But Charlie Turner says, coming from a series that's a favourite of mine, it's just rather average, even though the similarities between Doctor Who and the Silurians, but can they really not think of a better idea for a storyline that involves Silurians? Goes on to say, anyway, not Chibnall's strongest work, but not like his weakest so far. Cough, cough, the Saranga Conundrum. But gives it a 5.5 out of 10. Miles McKenzie, this is my guilty pleasure. There's something about this episode which I really like, but I can't put my finger on it. Matt's performance is amazing and one of his best for me. I totally forgot Rory died in this rewatch. Overall, it's a 7.5. And Jeff Waddle says, promising start, but an awful resolution of peace talks, and it went nowhere. Give me the cave monsters any day, which is really what this is done. Which is really what this is with the dome and the daemons thrown in. Oh yeah. I would rather have seen giant maggots turn up. Future Amy and Rory, what was that about? The cliffhanger to the Silurian city at the end was poorly realised, and goes on to give it a 2 out of 10.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Dear me.
Thank you so much, guys, for your reviews. Really insightful to hear what fandom's thinking about these as we rewatch them. It's all good. Next week, we are back to another series from Doctor Who. What are we reviewing next week, buddy?
So next week, I'm very excited about this, actually. So next week, it's Sarah Jane Adventures, and we are reviewing The Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith.
Back to Sarah Jane.
Yeah, I've not seen this one, and I know it's regarded as good because I think a certain Mr. Tennant turns up in this one, but I haven't seen it ever. And it's Sarah Jane, and we're loving it. So I don't want to get too excited because I don't want to be like too disappointed or anything. But I am really looking forward to watching that next week.
Yeah.
So
this is all fresh for us, so it's great to be watching these.
Yes,
and reviewing them. So all good. So yeah, I think we'll wrap there, dude, for 243.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sticking with us and listening to episode 243. Some really interesting news with the merch. We'll see what happens with that new retailer here in the UK, the Time Meddlers. Will keep you updated on what they come up with. It sounds good. And yes, it was really good to talk through Matt Smith again. I feel like we haven't done Matt Smith in a while, so it's really good to watch one of his stories. But generally middle of the road for that. in terms of your reviews. And thank you so much for all your thoughts and reviews, by the way. Really, really good. Next week, as Adam said, The Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith. So get that watched, because we'll be asking for your thoughts on that too. In the meantime, head over to our website, www.bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. You can listen to all of our shows on there. And we're also on all of the podcast networks. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all of those networks. Whatever you listen to, just do a search for us. Give us a subscribe so you don't miss a show when they land every Friday. And we're also on the socials as well. Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Just do a search of the Big Blue Box Podcast. You'll find us on there. We chat Doctor Who throughout the week, so get involved over there. And remember to check out my co-host's YouTube channel, The Geeks Handbag.
Yeah, The Geeks Handbag.
Give Adam a sub over there. Loads and loads of really cool videos. You'll get lost for hours going through his videos. Really cool stuff. And Adam's also on the socials under the same name, The Geeks Handbag. Just give him a like and a follow and stuff over there. Have a good week. We will see you next time for episode 244. Until then, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember,